Hi everyone, I'm Bob and I'm renovating this 1973 Egg Harbor Sportfish boat behind me. Now, this is late April, one of my favorite seasons recently because I picked up these allergies and yeah, that's why my eyes are probably half closed and red. But there's this video to put out, so I gotta get on camera and do my thing. So in this episode, I'm going to be installing the door trim. Now, if you watched the last episode, I installed the door sill. Well, I did the door sill and the door trim at the same time. I just split them up into two videos just to keep the projects, kind of together as individual projects. So the first half of this video, the door sill isn't even in. It's not even built. So that explains that. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll talk to you at the end of it. I'm going to work on these door frames. There's two of them. Now, the factory used single piece of mahogany. They kind of routed it and did different things to make it into one piece, so it actually includes the outside trim, the inside trim, and the door jamb itself, all in one piece of wood. Well, I'm not going to make it in the same configuration, so I'm just going to stick build it and use 3 pieces of wood, just because I'm going to have a wider trim piece and different trim in here, and it's going to fit a little bit different than the factory. I have a thicker bulkhead than the factory because I did it a little different. So I'm just going to do it that way. So I'm going to cut and plane and get all the pieces of wood that I need for this set today. And then underneath this piece of epay is this prized piece of mahogany that I've been trying to find a use of. I knew I was going to use it for something. I bought this a long time ago with a bunch of other mahogany, and never ended up using it for that project or any other project since then. So it's been just sitting up in my wood rack, and I pulled it down, and it's huge. It's really wide. It's probably 14, 15 inches wide and super long. And it's going to be enough wood to actually make all of the base trim that I'm going to put in the cockpit, all around the entire base of the cockpit. And this one piece will make all that base trim from my calculations, and I'll lay the pieces out here so you can see what I'm talking about. So just for demonstration purposes here, I laid out most of the base trim that was in the cockpit. This is all the existing stuff. It's all flipped upside down because there's some screws and things sticking out, and I just didn't want it to scratch the wood. But anyways, this is the piece that goes against the transom. It's got the curve to it. That kind of takes up most of the wood actually, just because you need the width. I'm just going to cut it with the curve in it. And then you have a couple longer pieces on the base. And interesting about these pieces here, even from the factory, they didn't even match. One is about a ½ inch wider than the other side. So if you looked at, you probably wouldn't notice it because you're only going to look at one side at a time. But if you could put your eyes out there like a chameleon or something, you would see that one was not as tall as the other side. I don't know why they did that, but anyways, that's what they did. And then there's a couple pieces back here. These are the ones that were on the bulkhead going up to the door. Then there's going to be a few more ones that go around the air intakes and things. Those are small. There's enough room in between here to get those pieces and on the end down there too. So I should definitely be able to get everything out of this. The other thing too is I'm going to make them narrower than these. These are about 2½ inches. I'm going to make them 2 inches, so I'll even use less than what you're seeing here. Alright, so yesterday afternoon I managed to get a bunch of pieces rough cut. Now, I'll mention I got all the base trim that's going to go around this entire cockpit. I got all those pieces planed down to a ½ inch. That was quite a ordeal because those pieces of board were probably like 15 feet long, and putting them through my little planer was not easy, and I pushed that thing to its limit. But I got it done. So those are kind of at least planed, and now I have to cut the pieces and fit those in. But I also got these pieces cut for the door frame. Now this is going to be the door jamb right here. 3/8 of an inch and about a little over an inch wide. So this will go kind of in this area here, in the door frame. And then this is the outside trim piece, which will go right along here on each side. Alright, so I'll just show you the progress so far. I've got the jamb piece kind of cut to match the bottom of that existing trim piece. And I just kind of have it jammed in there right now, just up against this sill. Now, the sill is going to sit on top of this piece of epay right here, so it's going to be it's going to be like 3/4 of an inch higher than what it's cut to now, but I'm just trying to get things fitting in here. So then the next thing was to get the trim piece that's going to go on the face here to notch around this little support area, so it's kind of at an angle, you can see. And then on this side you can see it's going to overhang kind of where that pencil line is where the edge of the trim's going to be. So it's got to kind of notch around this, still camera steady, notch around this area right here, and then notch over to here. And it's going to come up a little bit along the face of this. That's the plan. So that's what I'm trying to figure out now. So we'll go inside and look at the actual piece. I already cut it somewhat. I marked it. So this is which is going to be the outside face here. And here's the cut line that's going to go around that support, is going to come up through the top of this. So this piece here has got to be cut off. And that's, you can see the angle. The support has that angle to it, and that's the angle there. And I used my Japanese handsaw, trusty old friend here, and just cut down in this slot here. Shove it down in there. So I just use that to cut the angle and get that slot, and that's that. Now from there I'll use my jigsaw and cut along this way. Okay, I've cut that piece out. I've got the piece kind of clamped in there now. There's a little more going on here than what I was originally going to show you, but you can see how the angle is cut on that trim piece. It fits right up in there, goes right down to the bottom here. Okay, so to get this depth right here, I use this, put it up against there, kind of set it. Now it's not completely 90 degrees, so it's going to be close but not perfect. And now I can just transfer, I have to take this off and transfer that amount onto here so I can notch it over, and there's a line there. That's where I have to cut over and then up. Alright, here's the final fit here. We can see top is fitting good. Fits pretty good down here, good enough. It's going to be, that'll be filled. I'll use an epoxy that's colored to match mahogany up in that corner. You can see there, that's it. We'll go around the side here. I'm tripping over stuff, so don't mind that. So there's the fit there. Tight the whole way. All the way down. It's a little tight on the bottom right now, but it's fitting good. That doesn't matter. I'm gonna trim that down on the bottom anyways. Okay, everyone. Well, you missed all the fun last night. I actually epoxied the exterior trim to the door jambs on the port and starboard pieces. Now, I had all intentions of filming this, but once I did one side, I said, oh, I'll do one side first and then film the second one just to get my act together on the first one. Well, that was that was a lesson in frustration, and I was in no mood really to actually film the second one. I didn't have the camera set up or anything already, so I was like, I'm just going to go and get it done. It was getting later, so I just did it. So you missed out. These are the trim pieces that go on the door and the door jambs. I sanded off all the extra epoxy that was on there for when I glued these together, and just rounded over the edges of them and just cleaned them up to get them ready to try to fit in here today. I'm just going to dry fit them in today. I'm not going to be able to install them. It's too cold. But tomorrow might be better, and later in the week, this is Thanksgiving week, so I think the day, well, Thanksgiving is going to be pretty warm, but I'll be doing other things. But the day after, I have off, and hopefully it's warm enough that day, it's supposed to be, to get these things installed with epoxy, because it'd be nice to get these just installed. Once I screw them in, just remembering this, I'm going to have to mark over here where the edge of them is and sand all this paint off where they go, kind of like I did at the bottom here. And I did that along the edge on the bottom, so I'd like to get that done today too. Sand that. I probably won't film that, but that's just a tedious little job. I'll mark a line on here and then put some tape on and then sand as close as I can to it without going into it, because I don't want to have to touch it up. If there's a little bit on the edge that's not sanded, that's fine. I'd rather have that. So and it'll be a nice clean install. Okay, so first piece is kind of just clamped in there, and you can see it's got a nice fit along the edge here. What I want. The bottom fits really good. Kind of want it flush like it is with the sill. The original had the sill came out a little bit more, and then they had to notch the base trim around it. But I would rather just cut one straight cut on the base trim that's going to go there. So you can see once it's a little bit twisted, comes out a little bit over here, but once it's screwed in, it'll get it flush. Has a little bit of a twist to it. But I had it clamped down there. I just took the clamp off because I wanted to put this right angle, metal angle in here just to check and make sure it was perpendicular to the sill. And it is. I'll go around the other side and show that. But I just have it clamped in with a clamp there, and I've got one at the top too. We'll look at the top here. Hopefully I'm not shaking too much here, but so the top's going to fit. Now I did have this little chunk sticking up here before. That wasn't working out. That looked stupid. So I trimmed it off. Now that's just how the factory had it, kind of like this. I think I'm going to add a piece here of wood, but it's going to be just a separate piece just to cover up this area. I didn't like this little knob sticking out here. It looks a little unfinished. And when there's a little flap that comes down and covers the top of the door, I want it to sit up against something so nothing can get by it, because there will be like a gap there for it to work. So I'll put a separate piece of wood on there on both sides. The trick is to get them drilled deep enough that a plug's going to sit in there, and not too deep that you don't have any wood left. So that's why I keep playing around with this thing. Okay, so we are all completed with these trim pieces. They're both fitting on nicely. Port one was a little more difficult than the starboard one to fit up at the top, but it's all done. And I'm liking how it looks. Now the next step is to pull these off, but before I do that I have to tape around the outside edge on the painted surface so that when I pull them off I know how much painted surface I have to actually sand down to get the paint off, and probably up in this area here too. in the corner. I gotta tape all that up and sand all that down too so the epoxy sticks. And then on the inside, along the edge of the jamb over here, like right in here, I have to sand that down because it's not flush with the wall on the inside. It's a little bit high, so I'll get about 90% of that sanded down, and I'll just finish it off once I get these pieces in. Okay, so I'm all ready to go and install this jamb piece and trim piece. I've got everything sanded, did that the other night, and just gonna, the only thing I really have left to do is I'm gonna just pre-fit the trim one more time and get this, replace this tape with some new tape. Got a little chewed up in the sanding process. So I'm gonna do that first, then I'll take it off and install it. I'm not gonna show refitting it one more time. It's just to put the tape on and make sure everything covered around the perimeter of it that I don't want to get epoxy on. As you can see, it's already been screwed on. The card said the card was full. I know it's not full. I had to switch my card. So I got this on here. I'll film this side too, just so you know. Alright, so we're going to try to pick up where we left off, where the camera left off last time. I'm going to apply some thickened epoxy along this edge here with colloidal silica mixed with it because there's a gap that has to be filled. And then on this outside section here, I'm just going to use the 610 in the squeeze tube because it's a real tight fit and I don't really need a lot in there. So I'm going to go mix that up, get that going, and we'll put this thing in. So that's about it for getting it in. Now it's just a matter of cleaning everything up. I'm just going to do that on my own without messing around with a camera, and we'll get the final result. Alright, so what we have going on here, I'm fitting the old trim, base trim over here. That's this piece here, sitting on top of the new piece of EP that's down here. I'm going to make a new piece of base trim, and I'm just trying to, I want to kind of use this as a template to make a template, if that makes sense. And what you're seeing, these pieces of tape, just masking tape. This is where, when I took it off, it got a little messed up on the bottom. So I'm just putting tape there so I can get a little cleaner line when I flatten this out and kind of put it on over my pieces of plywood I'm going to use to make a template. It's too wide to do a one piece of plywood. I have to splice it in the middle and make it kind of double layer. But that's okay. I need a little bit thicker template in this case anyways, and I'll get into that when we're actually using it. But for now, I'm just trying to get this so I can trace it as a template. Now the other problem down in the corners over here, we have the opening for the scupper, and so I'm taping over that. And then in the very corner over here, the actual trim notched up in the corner because the decking went up to drain to the scupper. I went over that when I was putting the decking in. But instead of doing that over here, I actually cut this piece of epay up in the corner so the bottom of this can stay flat the whole way. So I don't have to notch this up in the corner. The other thing is the piece is a little too short, so I had to add some tape in the corner here just to get the right length, or get the length closer. I can trim that once I make the new template. I got to do the other side too. I just did this side and I'm showing you now. And to hold this in place, I have my little clamp thing I made that pushes out instead of clamping in. I had to clamp the board on over here to push it up against. So that's where we're at, that's what we're doing. Okay, so here's the other side. And you can see right in kind of this area how it kind of goes up and down a little bit in between those screws, and right below those screw holes, kind of right there. And then here's the end here, and I don't know, maybe you can see right in the corner it kind of kicks up a little bit. So those are the things I'm trying to take care of here with this masking tape. So we'll get this side done and we'll call it. Alright, so yesterday I was over at the boat and I put some tape on the bottom of this piece of base trim that goes on the transom. Now this morning I'm going to, first I'm going to just start by rough cutting some template material. I have this, people call it door skin, whatever. It's very thin plywood, pretty much voidless, which is good. And I've got a couple pieces of just regular 3/8 plywood under this piece, just because my work surface isn't big enough. But there's another layer of this here on top of here. So I'm going to cut, I can't cut one big piece out of it because it's about, you know, 1.5 feet too long. So I'm going to have to splice it together. So I'll cut 2 pieces to start with. And then I'll cut a center section and epoxy that on. Then I'll cut 2 little end sections to finish it off. It'll be 2 layers thick, which usually I just do 1, but 2 is going to be fine. Probably be better for when I use it to actually flush cut the edge of the actual piece when I do it. Now the new piece is going to be much narrower than this piece. This is like 2 3/4, I think. But the new one is going to be only 2 inches high. And it's about 2 3/4. So it'll be a little bit narrower than this. So the top I'm not too worried about right now. I just want to get the bottom cut pretty nicely to match the curvature of the actual deck on the transom. Off, put this thing totally to the side, but I'm going to cut the bottom here right along my line with my jigsaw, and then we'll cut out another piece for the center and the ends. So what we got to do now, we'll flip this around so I can cut it better. Alright, so after a lot of messing around, I finally got a piece that I'm going to install in the center here. This piece was actually this much longer on both sides. I ended up cutting it off because I was finding that it was just too long and cumbersome to try to get attached here. All I'm trying to do is attach the center here. And getting these things in and clamping everything down was difficult to hold this in place and get this lined up. So cut it down. This will be good. It'll attach the center as I want it, and then I'll just make a couple pieces on the ends just to fill it out, and then I'll be done and ready to fit the whole thing over there. So I can get all this done today. I kind of want to get over to the boat and mess around with some other things. So I'm going to just put some 610 epoxy on here, spread it out, clamp it down, and leave it here for the day, and that should be good. All right, well, there it is. It's all clamped together. I ended up using Fixo Flex from Total Boat because I had a tube of it I wanted to try. So we'll see how that works. I had a little trouble getting it out of the tube when I was over at the boat the other day, but it seemed to be a little bit better today, so maybe it's just temperature. But yeah, it's all on there. Everything's clamped together. And I'll just let it sit overnight. When I get home from the boat later today, I'll work on the ends. And so last night when I got back from the boat, I was only at the boat for an hour, and I'll show you what I did over there. But I cut these end pieces here for the template and clamped them on. I used Fixo Flex to clamp those on, to join those pieces together. So I'll be taking these clamps off and bringing this whole piece over to the boat today to just sand and get it tweaked and fit in there. I don't know how much I'll film. I may film just fitting it in, but the actual sanding of it and all that to get it fitting perfectly, you know, that's just fiddling around. Not really too interesting, but has to be done. So anyways, there's that piece. I'll sand the bottom down. It's going to be had to be sanded in certain areas, I'm sure, because I just cut this with a jigsaw. So I'll probably sand it before I even go over there, just to even out the two pieces, because they don't line up perfectly. You know, I just cut them separately with a jigsaw. So it's sitting in here right now. It still is not being held in by anything, but it's just its own spring back. But I can show you down in this corner, hopefully, kind of what I'm doing. Down here. Now you can see right in the corner at the bottom there's a little pencil mark. That's sitting a little low, as you can see, so it has to be sanded up to that pencil mark. And then it's pretty good here, and then it's a little low right there too, just to the left of the scupper opening. So that has to be sanded. So I'll sand those two spots, see how it drops everything down, and then just keep going along. Now, I've already done similar work to the other end because it was very, very much the same. And that dropped down really good. So I think once I do this side, it'll drop down, and then I'll be able to just fine tune it, and I'll actually push it up against the transom, some clamps or pieces of wood or something to hold it in there. Well, I do it each time, but every time I pull it off and sand it, it's going to get a little closer, and then it'll finally be good enough to follow the template. So anyways, that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to really film it. Once I get those marks, I just use my sanding block, hand sanding block, and just sand it. Sand's very easy and quick, and doesn't take much time at all. No need for chisels or anything like that, or planes. I could use a plane, I guess, but that sanding block just chews it right up. It's such soft wood. So anyways, that's what we're up to, and we'll keep going with it. Alright, so there's the bottom of that trim. Now the whole piece of trim is sticking out. It's not pushed up tight against the transom, but when it is tight up against the transom, it fits really good at the bottom. And yeah, so we're going to call that good. I'll bring that home and cut it to 2 inches, and then we can start building the new piece. Alright, well, that's where we're going to end this video. It's getting kind of long, and I guess we'll just pick up where we left off in the next one. So until then, have a good one, and we'll see you really soon right here on Renovation Sportfish.